It's time to talk about solutions. It's time to share the vision. It's time to dig deep and do the inner work. It's time for a little practical spirituality. I am your host, Crystal, aka DCS, aka WooWoo, and this podcast I interview David Pond, author of Chakras Beyond Beginners. We're going to talk about what they are, how working with the chakras can help you, and why you should care. This is the WooWoo Hour. Hey, everybody. This is Crystal, aka DCS, aka Woo Woo, and you are listening to the Woo Woo Hour podcast, exclusively on the mind of DCS. Well, not exclusive, you guys can share it, tweet it, do whatever you want to do with it. If you like it, share it, steal it, I don't care. It's all good stuff. So I want to do a very, very quick little introduction here, and then I am going to let you guys jump right into the interview I did with David, who is amazing. I had David on my show when I did radio back in the days of Blog Talk when I was on BTR. And we talked about his first book, so I'm absolutely thrilled to have him back. Very briefly, here's what you can expect on the Woo Woo Hour. The Woo Woo Hour is going to be a monthly or bi-monthly. It kind of just depends on how scheduling goes with a lot of these guests. We're aiming for monthly. I'm hoping to do my bi-monthly, so just keep you guys up to date on that. But the Woo Woo Hour will feature a variety of guests, and we're going to talk about very woo-woo topics, but I want to bring them down into the practical level. The spiritual journey is very personal, but it is very important. And the world is full of critics right now. And I think we need to be talking about the solutions to a lot of our most challenging problems. And we're going to talk about the external, and we're going to talk about the internal here on the Woo Woo Hour. So this episode, we're going to talk about the internal stuff. That doesn't mean we won't have episodes where we do talk about some external solutions to certain things, but it all starts within. It's got to start somewhere, and it starts with you. So when you're in balance and when things are kind of flowing and moving and shaking in your own life, that's when you can really light up the world and do your best work. That's when you can share your vision. So what I want to do here on the Woo Woo Hour is really help everybody share that vision, tell that vision. Like I said, we're going to talk about solutions, and we're going to do it in a practical manner. If you're a single mother and you've got 3 children, why should you care about the chakras? If you're a busy professional, you're suffering from depression, or you're just trying to navigate the reality of life, why should you care about the woo-woo stuff? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about why you should care and how maybe it can help you. Again, this is a deeply personal journey. It's a very individual journey. David and I talk about this. This podcast might not resonate with you. That's not to say that you might not listen next week, and it might resonate with you. So again, you'll pick up bits and pieces here and there, but I do hope that everybody enjoys. I would encourage feedback from you. A little bit about myself. I am a science fiction thriller author, among many, many other things. I'm also deeply spiritual. I've had my own journeys, experiences, hardships. I live life the same way you guys do, and I go through it all. I am a home-based business owner, and what I'm really trying to do is bring the mind of DCS to life and make it feasible for me. I want to share content with you guys. You'll Please visit my Real Talk blog and visit the writing blog over on themindofdcs.com. And when you like something, share it. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. If you like something, comment on it. I love that. The third book in the Sonarchy series is coming out soon. I am also sharing those writings over on the writing blog. Some other fun things coming up is I am a gamer. I love video games. I'm having a blast in a lot of them. So I'm going to be starting a gaming with an author. That will be me. I'm going to start a Twitch TV channel where I do some fun gaming, Dragon Inquisition, Black Desert Online, The Secret World, Civilization 6 when it comes out. I'm about it. I can't wait. And we play games on easy. Don't judge. I play games on easy. I don't play games on hard. I don't do that. Nope. So that's coming up. So I would encourage everybody, visit themindofdcs.com often. You can subscribe to the newsletter to stay up to date, and that's really just to let you know when a post goes up. You can follow me on Twitter at DCSSVT. You can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com /Crystal Storm, or you can find us at the Snarky Series, facebook.com /the Snarky Series. Although because Facebook is weird with its pages and algorithms, I haven't really updated my page so much. I've kind of made my personal page where the updates happen. So it's really just better to find me on Twitter or just interact with me on the blog or on the Twitch TV channel, or I'm trying to multiple ways for you guys to find me in the content, and you'll have different ways to support the content if you so choose. All that will be coming up next month in June. That's pretty much it. I would love to read feedback from you guys at the beginning of the podcast. So if you have some feedback to give, if you listened to an episode and you thought it was great, or you applied a technique, you started meditating, you started using the chakras, like we're going to talk about in this episode with David, anything, really anything, good, bad, whatever, send us an email. Send us an email. It's just me. Send me an email. Love to hear from you. I would love to share some of those letters at the beginning of the podcast. I would also like to start doing a very brief good news segment at the beginning of the podcast where I share with you guys some of the solution-based things that are already happening in the world. We can get very overwhelmed by what's wrong, and then we forget to talk about what's right. We forget to talk about how to make it right. So I want to really, really, really dig into that, and I encourage you guys to do that as well. Stop bashing what you hate. Talk more about what you love. I think we need a lot more of that. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. So that's it. That's all I've got for right now. I think this is a long enough introduction. You guys are here to listen to me and David, or mostly David, talk about the chakras. So let's get into that. Coming up right now on the WooWoo Hour, DCS, aka WooWoo, aka Crystal, me, and author and astrologer David Pond talking about the 7 chakras and his new book. Here we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal, aka DCS, aka WooWoo, and I am so excited to be bringing you guys the WooWoo Hour podcast from the Mind of DCS. I am talking today with my first guest for this hour, the amazing David Pond. I interviewed David many years ago, I think when I was still on Blog Talk Radio, so funny how times changed. And then we talked about his book, Chakras for Beginners, and I will link to the archive in the show notes so you can hear that original interview. But today we are going to talk about his new book, Chakras Beyond Beginners. David, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, certainly. I'm so glad that you've set this up. I'm glad to be here indeed.
Absolutely. David, you know what? Let's very quickly tell people about your background. Tell people kind of who you are and what you've been doing and why you've been doing it.
Well, certainly. Well, I've been involved with astrology and the chakras since the late 60s, actually, when it's been a while ago, but I started off being a school teacher, but found I was really more interested in the kids' astrology than I was their math scores, so it kind of gave me a good sense of direction that that's where my passion was, and so that's what we've done for 40-some years, raised our family. We're family people. I've got 4 sons, 8 grandkids. That's what I do when I'm not doing my astrology and metaphysics, but what a laboratory, real life people. So astrology and the chakras have been the 2 dominant tools that I use. Astrology helps me to know what's going on for people, what's the timing, what are the issues. But the chakras I've started working with early in life, when you start studying yoga, if you get interested in that, you hear about the chakras, and on all paths, it's such an authentic tool. Anybody interested in consciousness has found their way to understand the chakras because it's such an authentic core part of who we are. And I find that the chakras are great in this regard, studying them, in that you don't need to have an astrologer interpret what's going on. They're your chakras. So each of us have our own direct connection to energy and spirit within. And so the subtitle of this book is Chakras Beyond Beginners, Awakening to the Power Within. And that's what I want to share with people, is that we do have this tremendous power within ourselves. And when we work with our chakras, we could call it an inside-out approach instead of boy, I'll get centered and happy as soon as I get this done and that achieved and that accomplished. Well, that's kind of like what we're raised with, but that list never ends. I'll get centered, I'll be happy, I'll be fulfilled once or soon as. And we work with our chakras. You work with finding those places directly within yourself, finding that center, that connection to spirit, regardless of what's going on in the world around you. And this is the direct path of working with the chakras and our own individual consciousness that I'm excited about with this new book.
Fantastic. So let me, so I've got like a million questions, and we're so going to get into this. So
good.
Yeah, absolutely. In your first book, Chakras for Beginners, which was very helpful to me, especially when I first started, working with the chakras, because I found, one of the most difficult things for me when I first started spirituality, was that every journey is personal, that I'm not going to find a book that tells me this is how you do it and this is where you do it. And, you don't find that in spirituality. You'll end up reading, 50 different books, and you'll take little bits and pieces from all of them. So your book was extremely helpful because, it kind of explained what the chakras did and then how you would feel when they were in balance and how you would feel when they were out of balance. And then you took it one step farther and you also listed, some exercises that you could try to, to bring those chakras back into balance if you needed to. So let's go into detail with, what happens in your second book? What's the next level?
It's going deeper into that. What you just mentioned is the secret of working with the chakras. It is balance within yourself, and they're right there. And so in Chakras for Beginners, we give people those tools of finding those places directly within themselves. And in this book, we're going just one step further in also distinguishing between what we could call our own higher self and our personal self. Now, in traditional language, we could say the personal self is called our ego, right? We hear that all the time. We have to get over our ego, or that's your ego, or it's my ego in the way. But we all have lower chakras, and I'm calling them our personal self in the book. And then I'm distinguishing that between our higher self, which is the qualities of the upper chakras. And we all have both. And how to get those in harmony so we kind of bring the lower chakras into balance. And most of, quite a bit of what we're working with in this book is removing the blocks of the natural flow of energy that's there. We all have this tremendous energy. We all have these higher states of consciousness that we're aware of with the upper chakras. But if we don't remove the blocks, it's like our mind gets preoccupied with what the event is, or what my issue is, or what that today's problem is. So it's learning how to start exploring consciousness itself within ourselves rather than what's currently arising, rather than what I'm currently thinking about. It's, what is the part of me that is, where's the thinker in that, instead of what I'm going through. So it's awakening to that power of our own individual awareness and direct connection to spirit, and deepening those exercises and activities and furthering the distinction. Like when we talk about the upper chakras, Crystal, don't you think many of us think of like the sixth and seventh chakra kind of get combined a lot in people's mind, and the
absolutely.
upper chakras. You know what I mean? It's like we're familiar with that upper chakra theme, but here I go into much more rich detail about how to distinguish between particularly the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh chakras when we get up into those higher levels of our own individual consciousness.
Fantastic. I'm so excited to read this book. So excited. So, you know what? And because I've got a million more questions, but let's talk about it from why we should care. If you're a busy professional, or someone like you've got family, grandkids, kids, why should I care about my chakras and getting them in balance?
Well, that's a great question. But it is for like for everyday people, we could call it. People, they've got life, they've got family, they've got work. Well, the chakras, we can't have much impact or change the world a lot, right? We can't have the businessman can't say, I want the economy to be better tomorrow. Well, we can say that, but it doesn't necessarily respond.
Right.
Or I want that deal to go through. We can wish that, but it doesn't always go through.
Right.
And so this externalization is what we tend to do. But this internalization, whether you're a businessman or a yoga student or whether you're a family person, knowing how to directly connect to your own inner peace, your clarity, and then get involved with the world. It's not to take us out of the world, but it's to bring the fullness of our being. Let's think of it this way. I'll tell a story. Let's imagine a musician comes to town, and he flies into town, a famous musician, and the plane is late, the traffic's bad, he gets to the concert hall, the audience is out there, and he doesn't know what to do. You know, everybody wants me, I'm a little bit late, should I tune the instruments, or should I rush out there and play it? I've got all this I should do. And it's a silly notion of him, you know, rushing out there to play to meet the needs of the audience without first tuning his instrument, right?
Right.
Like that, no. And the instrument of our being includes our intuition, our feeling nature, our emotional nature. We have so many things more to rely on as resources than just our mind and what we're currently thinking about, right?
Right, right.
And that's what, for the businessman or the family person, I mean, if for a family person, a mom raising her children and they're in their younger states when they're not always centered, you know, the mom can learn how to get into her center, and then it creates a coherence, that interacting with the children from a centered place, all right? Or interacting the businessman who's got self-control and touch with his own power. He's enhanced his listening skills, his intuition. Well, he's going to be much more effective in the outer world too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an amazing feeling when you realize that you're kind of in balance. And then I find the knowledge of being out of balance is also helpful, you know, because you're reacting to a certain situation or you're doing something, and then you can kind of stop and pause and just be like, oh, that's where that's coming from. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just good to have that kind of, you know, this understanding of yourself and kind of where you are, and am I reacting to something, or is this mine, or, you know, is this me? What's going on?
So that awareness that you're talking about, Crystal, is this me? Is it mine? Is it my lower voice saying, oh, I'm nervous about this? Is it my... but we all have that higher self, and we can call it, I think of it as like a composite. Like if we just went through the chakras, just for those who are still new to it, you know, we all have these 7 levels. The first 3 deal with our body and our ego and our individual life and what we need to feel secure for the first chakra, and our instincts and the habits of how we take care of our body even. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is we could talk all of our spirituality, but we are in a body.
Right.
And how we take care of that shows up over time. And that's the first house, first chakra, how we take care of our own body, listen to our instincts. We call it the need for survival, but most of us in the consciousness work aren't working with survival as much as getting grounded, being fully present in our body, knowing how to take care of your individual body different than mine.
Right.
We have our health standards for the community. You need this, you need that, but your body doesn't thrive on the same food that mine does, right? Mm-hmm. And we have to individually know that and take responsibility for, well, what keeps my body tuned up.
Now, when you say...
At the second chakra, we're doing... go ahead, excuse me, Crystal.
I'm sorry, just really quick, because when you say, you know, getting grounded, I think for me and you that might mean something, but then for the first-time listener, they might mean, well, you know, when you hear the phrase get grounded, it means, well, get your head out of the clouds, you know, put your feet on the ground, stop daydreaming that. Are we talking about the same thing here when we talk about getting grounded?
Exactly the same thing. And you said it so well. The first chakra rules our feet and our connection to the ground. And as a coach in Little League when my boys were young, and I noticed that, you know, so many of the players that were new at baseball, they weren't grounded when they went up to bat. They were so nervous. They were more fearful about making a strike or getting an out than they were confident about getting a hit. And just helping them breathe, feel their feet on the earth, feel that connection, that is what grounding is. Bringing our breath all the way down to our lower abdomen anytime we're nervous or anxious, whether it be in something that we're trying to perform, like a public speaking or a kid at bat, a child at bat, or whether it's a stressful situation, our breath is always constricted. If we're anxious, the energy is not healthy, the breath is always constricted, isn't it? It's or barely breathing, or just butterfly breath.
Right.
And and the grounding is just being aware of that, and just being aware of your whole system, breathing deep into your belly, feeling your feet on the earth. And then on the deep in-breath, embracing the energy, expanding your self-identity to embrace the energy rather than wish it away. When people are nervous or anxious or feel like there's just too much energy, often it's a need to get kind of grounded with that, right?
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so there we go. So everybody who needed to
and
understand.
Grounded means being centered and present in our body, fully aware. So like when you say somebody's got their head in the clouds, well, that's the upper chakras. Beautiful, but if a person's not grounded, people talk about their upper chakras, but if they're not grounded in their life and in their being, we don't listen to them because they sound like space cadets, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So when you're listening to some of these spiritual talkers and they sound like they are really just far out there sometimes, they might not be too grounded.
Yeah. Are you paying your bills? How's your life? How's your body?
Right. Absolutely. Okay, that's chakra number 1. Chakra number 2.
Well, that's we call it the pleasure chakra. It's often thought of as sexuality, but it's the water element, where the first chakra is the earth element, your connection to the earth and grounded and practical in your material world and where you need to thrive. And you thrive in the east, I thrive in the west. We need to find our right environment in our country or wherever. The second chakra is water. It's emotions, the fluid flowing movement of emotions. And it is pleasure-seeking. It is what we enjoy. I'm drinking a cup of coffee this morning because I enjoy it. That's second chakra. We're looking for what we enjoy, what we find pleasure. If a person's, seeking that too much, of course, in our culture, we're all familiar with too much pleasure-seeking. It's easy to happen. But it's also, if a person denies that, they're dry, their spirit isn't moist. But learning how to be with our own emotions in our culture, Crystal, I think individually that's huge work.
Absolutely.
Because we think of our emotions almost as if they were troublesome.
Yes.
Instead of a core part of who we are.
Oh, my goodness. And it's almost, David, I'm glad you brought that up. So talk about that as being, a man, because I've been very interested in kind of, watching this interaction between, the male and the female. And I kind of think that we're moving towards this kind of return of feminine energies in that emotional body, because that's kind of what you think about with the feminine, that, we need to have that emotion back, that we've kind of lost it. So talk about, how important it is, especially as a man, for, being comfortable with your emotions and feeling them and expressing them.
Well, yes, because we all have emotions. Men are more. We're not raised to get in touch with our feelings.
Right.
Other cultures, men are, but this particular culture, it's maturity means getting over your emotions and sensitivities and vulnerabilities. But if we're able to be in touch with our emotions and feel them and be aware of them, they start flowing through us. If a man is not in touch with his emotions, right, so if I've got a strong emotional current moving through me, and yet I haven't been raised, oh no, that's not me, but via projection, I'm going to say it's caused because of my wife or what she did or what they did, that's why I'm feeling this. I'd be fine, but they are off. Right?
Right.
As we learn to honor our own emotional energy, we no longer project it. It's no longer, we're not looking to, have it fixed outside of self again. We get more in touch with our own ability. Now, the sensuality of the second house, most men can relate to the sexuality. And most men, in terms of, that's a judgment, isn't it? It's a generalization.
Right.
But in terms of what you asked about men, I could just say that we've equated intimacy with a physical closeness.
Right.
If I want to be intimate with my partner, that means, well, in sex, it means, that's the kind of male image. But as we learn that intimacy is really an emotional issue, It's being with somebody that's fully safe to drop all armor, and you feel that they're dropping all armor, and you explore that mystery of what's going on, rather than bringing an agenda.
Right.
That's what we seek with intimacy, man or woman, right?
Yeah, that's what you're really looking for when you're you're looking for a connection, I think, and we're just finding it. It's almost like we're confused about how to find it, that deeper connection. It's almost like you have that, that physical encounter, and then when you're done, you're left with that empty feeling. So it's like you go to do it again, and you go to do it again, but you're not realizing what you're actually missing is that intimate connection.
Because most of us would agree that's the nectar. I mean, that's what was sweet about what we call physical or emotional or mental or spiritual intimacy, is being with somebody that all armor's dropped. But that's not the easiest thing either, is it? Because we've learned that it's tough out there. You got to protect yourself. Never forgive, never forget, or you're going to get hurt.
Right.
Well, now you're not. Now we can't flow.
Exactly.
Now it's blocked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the second chakra deals with flowing, fluid emotions, and as we start learning that I am not my mind because I'm aware of my mind. Most of us know that when we think about awakening to our upper chakras, we learn about, if there's a part of me that's aware of what I'm thinking, I can't be what I'm thinking. There's something in me that's aware, something mysterious that's watching that, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if we do that with our emotions as well, learn to watch them rather than fix them or change them, they move like the tides of the ocean or waves washing across. They rise, and then they fall, and then they move away. But when we either resist or attach, resistance or attachment or aversion are both things that hold us at that second chakra, so we're just not flowing through. Right? Attachment is, I have to have my coffee or whatever else I'm attached to.
Do not touch my coffee, David. It's mine.
My formula. But aversion is like, it can't be around that. That feeling, I hate that. So we just push it away, right? Mm-hmm. And men, we've been taught to kind of push things away. Emotions, push that down, rise above that.
Right. And I think for a lot of women too, it's about, accepting your sensuality, your want for intimacy, that connection, and it being okay too. So it's kind of like both sides of the coin. We've kind of twisted this where, I mean, what I'm hearing is that this is really just about, recognizing your emotion and allowing them to just be, being able to say, okay, this is how I feel, this is where it's coming from, and that is okay. And, I'm angry about this, and I'm angry about this because of that. Or I absolutely love this, and I love this because.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's deep acceptance again, isn't it? Just of the natural humanness of our lower chakras. We do have emotions, and if we let them move through us, it gives us, like in relationships, let's say if I'm not in touch with my emotions and you ask me, well, what's wrong? How you doing? You seem grumpy. And I say, nothing, I'm just fine. You'd say, well, I heard those words, but something emotionally didn't resonate with that, right?
Right.
And so, but it also helps us to understand other people's emotional sensitivities and feelings. And so words don't really work as well with the second chakra as they do with others, because emotions, try telling yourself, I shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
Did it change your emotion?
Nope.
I shouldn't
you know what? It
jealous
almost
or
makes it worse.
I just shouldn't. Well, that's the mind telling. So
right.
What? That doesn't. You still are. We still are. I say I am. So it's learning to accept those and then move through them rather than having aversion to them too.
Right. So much work that can be done at that chakra. So, okay, that's number 2. Let's go on to number 3.
Now, 3 is the willpower, the solar plexus chakra. It's the highest of the lower chakras that we call lower because they're first, second, and third, not because of less quality.
Right.
I think of the lower chakras kind of like young puppies that your higher self is trying to raise. They're delightful, they're affectionate, they're noisy, but dang, they're messy and uncontrollable and keep demanding.
Oh,
You know,
that I think they're like they embody the human experience. The lower chakras are, it's you know, when you
yeah,
talk
they're
about it, that's
delightful, but
really what it is.
man,
They
they can be
are.
annoying too.
Oh, what
Now,
a
so
mess.
the third chakra is fire, and it's the first of the upward turning chakras, where the first two chakras kind of pull us down into comfort and ease and security. The third chakra, our will, is where we take a deep breath. It pulls us to our solar plexus, and we will ourselves into action, and we activate that inner fire. So it's confidence, it's willpower, it's the ability to overcome doubt and all of our slovenly behavior, do and achieve and accomplish and make something of our lives in our own eyes. And when that's blocked, we feel ineffective, like I have no power in the world. If it's, if we're over-attached to it, many people in the Western world are, success, achieve, accomplish. Well, then it skews that compass to that third chakra level quite a bit. Very competitive, it likes to win. But it's our own fire, our own drive. Now, that fire is also, in the body, relates to metabolism, digestive fire. And often when people are feeling sluggish and slow and lethargic, they can't just take a deep breath. Their diet hasn't been the kind of fuel that can metabolize into energy, right? Mm-hmm. So it's also being aware of that it's our metabolism and the energy that we get. We eat food, but it transfers into energy. Did the food that we eat transform? So it's all things about transformation, the third chakra. We eat food, but then it becomes energy in our body, right? But it's in our life as well. It's the inner fire to transform something, and in the outer world, it's to do and achieve and accomplish and push ourselves to be fit or do more sit-ups or push-ups or earn more. But that same fire is also that which is necessary to, if a person wants to take that fire and have a spiritual inclination, it takes fire to rise up above the lower chakras, and they're demanding attention every day, doesn't it? Because it doesn't matter how spiritual we are. Each and every day we all deal with our humanness too, right?
Absolutely. And I think we should that's very important, because I think, sometimes when people think of spirituality, they think people are just walking around happy-go-lucky all day and nothing ever bothers them and all, life is great. And that's not the full experience. I mean, I think you want those moments, because I definitely enjoy those moments where it's like giving yourself a hug. That's the best way that I can, it's just that moment of just quiet peacefulness where you're just, at ease with everything. And that's wonderful to have every day. But at the same time, I want to be affected by things. I want to feel, not just, happy, joy all the time, but you want to be, angry about something that's wrong, or you want to feel passionate or excited. I mean, you want the full force of those.
Yes. And that's passion, isn't it, what you're describing? That's fire, life passion, not just sexual passion, life passion. If we're going to do it, get your fire, get your passion into it. That's the third chakra drive. And yet also to take that fire, like we say, for, I've been working with the chakras, a lifetime meditator. But every morning, it doesn't matter how spiritual I got to yesterday, I start off afresh again. I still have to rise up above all the negative, the doubt, I don't feel, you know what I mean? And that's our third chakra, and it doesn't matter how far along a person is, they still have to activate that to propel themselves, to rise up out of just even the lower chakras. So it's using the lower chakras to give the fire to activate. Because that hunger that we have, we talk about different kinds of emotions. The third chakra are the hot emotions, like anger.
Yes.
And second chakra are more like the cool sadness, like watching a sad movie and we cry. They're both emotions, right?
Right.
But the fire emotion is, I'm angry. And the second chakra emotion is, I feel. See? Mm-hmm. Now, so that third chakra issue to overcome just our own tendency towards inertia sometimes. It takes that fire, doesn't it? And usually that means physical activity, some kind of stoking that fire and activating your own inner fire so that the drive is there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you would say that the third chakra really sounds like a combination of, of emotion and also, being reminded that you are in a body and, if, how you're feeling is not always a product of, something spiritual, you might be eating the wrong thing. You might not be getting enough exercise. It's kind of, a reminder that you're this complete being. So you've got to do, a bunch of different things basically. And that's the joy of being human, to kind of keep yourself in balance.
And like you said, Crystal, with in terms of consciousness work, we can read 50 authors, but did we change? It's like,
right,
because that's all out there, but yet you have to be able to ultimately internalize it to you individually for it to be relevant, right?
Absolutely.
And the lower chakras are the same thing with our body. We mentioned diet and exercise. We all need different. We can't just use universal standards. You need this much protein and this much. Each of us have to know, like a vegetable garden. Oh yeah, they all need sunlight, water, and food. But each vegetable thrives in a different combination.
Absolutely.
And the first lower chakras is figuring out, knowing your own vegetable mess in the garden, so to speak.
It's really just a matter of understanding what works for you. And I think people are going to go through a lot of trial and error. And, when you're working with this, I think a good reminder is to be gentle with yourself because, you're going through trial and error. I would love it if we were taught this growing up, but you're not. So chances are you've got, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of bad habits to break. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, now I'm self-aware. Now I understand. Now I've got to figure out, what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And you will probably read 50 books and watch, 1,000 videos and, you'll find out that sugar is bad or grain is bad or be a vegetarian or don't be a vegetarian. And look, it's how you feel at the end of the day.
And all those are, it's pointers or instructions, but they're all external. And again, the chakras are very specifically internal.
Yes.
No, I got to know what food works for me. I got to know what exercise. I have to know how much pleasure and how much not. I have to know where I live and what my body's needs. But then this is where we start every day. But then the consciousness work that we do, that's the upper chakras, and we start with the fourth chakra, which is the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. There's 7. It's the fourth. It's right in the middle. It's allegiant to both. And, we call it power of love as the first. Like the third chakra is the love of power.
Yep.
In the fourth chakra, we learn about the power of love. It's not just a romantic Valentine kind of image. It's a way of living. Whoa. So the heart chakra is personal love at one level. It's compassionate love, where our heart is sad for the refugees in the world, or the hunger, or people that we know they're going. That's our ability. The heart chakra, we connect with other people, empathetically, and at the highest level, it's universal love, where like the Beatles and Jesus always taught. It's all love.
Absolutely. I would, would you describe, the heart chakra as maybe, I don't know, one of the most difficult for us to work with, especially kind of with the state of affairs going on in the world today? I think because it's almost very easy when your heart chakra is open to get overwhelmed, by things. You're sad about one thing and then you read something else and now I'm sad about that. And, it's kind of like having that empathy and that connection. It's almost like sometimes you just got to step back. Because it gets to be a lot sometimes.
Well, that part of you just said it gets to be a lot sometimes. We have to step back. I can't look at all that suffering and then have a good day. That type of. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Well, like we say, the heart is allegiant to both the upper chakras, which are more attached to truth and understanding. They're not of our personal emotional nature. So the lower aspect of the heart chakra itself has different levels. The first level, personal love, is also that part of us that gets overwhelmed by suffering because we take it personal, right?
Right.
So we get into
Right.
the upper chakras, we're transcending the personal. We're more concerned about collective and where we are spirits as a tribe of people, and that we don't carry those personal feelings to the same degree.
Okay.
It's not less sensitive, but it's called that detachment that can see without having personal attachment to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not. This is really what we're talking about now. Is that getting up into the upper chakras, where let's jump to the fifth chakra if we can.
Sure.
And that we call it, it's the throat chakra. It's expression, writing, speaking. It's also listening. It's tone. But it's also the quality of detachment because its hunger is for truth. Truth.
Okay. You know what? And I'm listening to you.
Is that happy truth or sad truth? Truth is truth.
Right. And
it doesn't have that emotional tinge. Well, it should or shouldn't. It's hunger at the fifth chakra as the awaken to a higher dimension. We call it detachment, but it's because the interest is in true truth. It's like, I don't care if I enjoy the feelings or not. I want to know the truth.
Absolutely. And I almost think that I mean, well, at least for me, it's kind of that transition between, lower heart to upper heart that I sometimes struggle with. And I'm thinking, because I sometimes don't have a problem with, because a lot of people, when you hear detachment, it's almost like an oxymoron when you're talking about, what we were just talking about, because, all right, I'm connected, I'm feeling everything, and now all of a sudden I'm detached. Well, does that mean I no longer care? And it's almost one of those things that you really have to experience where because I have before, you bounce back and forth, because it's very hard sometimes to look at a situation and you're watching it and you're going, all right, so this is what it is. And it's not that I don't care about it anymore, but it's just that I've found the truth of it. This is why you're acting this way, and here's the solution. So let me kind of step back from this, the kind of this mess, and kind of let's start talking about how we fix it. Let's instead of being caught up in the suffering and in the pain, let's kind of shift the narrative a little bit.
Well said, and that's the upper chakra. That's the upper region of the fifth, the heart chakra. But it's a hunger for truth and the liberation and the innovative, the energy. It's our intuitive energy. The fifth chakra. It's the innovative. It doesn't get stuck in life.
Right.
Because it's part of our higher self, which doesn't go through all the ups and downs of our personal self. Your personal self, my personal self, has joys and sorrows, losses and gains. Mm-hmm. Has anybody of us not experienced that?
Right. We'll wait. Go ahead.
But our higher
self
call doesn't go through all those gyrations. It's in pure consciousness. So it's watching all that turbulence and up and down. It sees it. But as we start learning to anchor ourselves more in the upper chakras, it's not that those lower chakras aren't still yammering away. We're more attentive. We're seeking truth at a higher level rather than what are my personal needs today.
Right. Absolutely. That what I think in that it almost not that the lower chakras aren't fun, they're fun too, but it's almost like you're graduating. That's kind of what it feels, at least for me, that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, like you were saying, the lower three chakras, it's a whole bunch of kids running around a playground just being kids and and acting, and all of a sudden I am graduated and I'm able to look at this from a different perspective, and that's really what it is. It's a total shift, and it's kind of amazing.
It is, because then it allows us to start being guided more by the higher self, allowing those kids to play on the playground, but knowing when they got to come in.
Right.
And yet, because we're being guided by the higher self more, rather than, well, the lower self is, I got to get all this stuff and all my needs and all my attachments and I got to get all that met. Boy, then I'm really going to become a spiritual conscious person. Well,
you're backwards. We're doing it completely backwards.
Just the age-old quest.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's throat chakra.
Then we get up to
let's keep going.
The fifth chakra, the desire for authentic truth. We also start understanding tone, and we start hearing people from truth rather than, we don't just hear what they say. Our intuition, our awareness, our detachment gives us an awareness. When I was a young astrologer. One of my clients was an actress, and at the end of our session, she wanted to give me a gift, she said. And she told me she said that what she had learned in acting was to not just speak from your throat, your fifth chakra, but to breathe down, you let your diaphragm and your belly vibrate as you speak, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it has an energetic effect on people. They don't just hear it at the ears, they feel what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that's understanding tone and vibration. Musicians have always understood this. But how helpful for communicators to be aware of our own, vibration and tone, and how we can, and be aware of other people's vibration and tone. What is it that they're saying energetically? The desire for the upper chakras and the fifth chakra is the desire to be authentic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Isn't that a wonderful word, Crystal?
It is. You know what? And it really is. And I know that, sometimes it's very hard to relate to that term. You're like, well, what are we talking about being authentic? And let me see if this is a good example, David. So for example, if I'm talking to someone and I'm listening to their, kind of political views on something, and if I'm able to kind of step away from, talking points while I'm listening to them talk and kind of understand and feel them and say, well, what you really kind of are trying to express here is you have a need and you're trying to get it met through this, that, and the other. So instead of, kind of being riled up by the fact that, well, I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican and you're talking all that Democrat nonsense, it's almost being able to kind of step back from that and say, well, what your body and what you are trying to express is that I would like this solved. Is that kind of where we're at?
Well, that's awakening at the higher level, isn't it? Then communication isn't just words.
Right.
Right. You're listening to what's the other person's intention, what their vibration, and communication, body posture, tone, temperament, time that we, pace of delivery. There's so many things that are part of what communication is all about, other than words, right? And people who awaken to that fifth chakra level, they're very aware of it, but they're very aware of it in other people too. They know if people are speaking from their truth or if they're just spouting an opinion.
Right. And
so
I think at those levels you can feel it.
With a awakening to the throat chakra, you'd think that they'd be more verbal, but often they're less.
Yes.
Because words either are helpful or harmful or irrelevant. We could say that.
That's true too. It's true almost, because I think, a lot of times we have a hard time communicating from those higher levels because, there really aren't words for it. We're really getting into kind of, it's a whole different territory here where you can just, you're feeling the energy of people. There's a connection there where, that you're kind of understanding.
So, what you're talking about then is, like in communication, often you'll feel that the other person is listening to you, but they're just more waiting for they're just waiting for their chance to say what they're going to say.
Right.
Rather than really listening to you.
Absolutely.
It's like, but they awaken to that upper chakras with the fifth chakra particularly. There's often a little bit of a pause. And, somebody asks something or says something, there's a pause because the person, instead of just reacting of I like, I don't like, they're not adding just opinions. Instead, they're waiting for a moment for that intuitive sense of truth, or what's the bigger picture here, right?
Right. What did I hear? What did I feel, about what you just said?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
And then as we go up to the sixth chakra, everybody knows about the third eye, the spiritual eye. But it's about visualization and imagery to a great degree. Mm-hmm. Our ability to visualize, do visualization exercises like, well, let's imagine that your first chakra is red. Now picture that. Well, that's our sixth chakra that allows us to do that, right? Visualization, imagery, imagination.
I love doing that. It's fun.
This level is also deals with faith in higher spiritual forces, but it also deals with fear. And many people have been kind of hijacked at the sixth chakra by fear. Mm-hmm. And fear is that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the the stuff that doesn't really happen, but what if? You know, our minds do, well, yeah, but what if? You know, what if?
Right, right.
And if we
Visualization
mastered
can be, I'm
the
sorry, go ahead.
Sixth Chakra, you'd know in a moment. Wouldn't it be great to know, like all those, how to put down those bad fears that are just imaginary? They're not going to happen. They didn't happen. They don't happen, but they're haunting anyway. Well, what if? And we get into all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't it be great to just put that stuff down like a bad book in a library and go find something more enchanting?
Absolutely.
Well, that would be the mastery of the Sixth Chakra. It would be the understanding that imaging is happening all the time, what we imagine, how we picture. I like to picture the Sixth Chakra like a lotus flower. And when it's pointing upward to the light, it receives light. The artist, the spiritual seeker, the artist connects with the muses, and the creativity just flows. I bet when you're writing sometimes you start in and then it just keeps going. Like, where'd that come from? I sat down, I had a paragraph I wanted to write, now I got 2 pages.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, I thank the muses. Well, that's when the Sixth Chakra is pointing upward, and that innovative, or for spiritual people and their connection to angels and higher self, and then other levels of intelligence, or Jesus, or Buddha. This or their own higher self. It's just that's working with that energy, the third eye pointing upward. But when it's pointing downward, the imagination can go into escapism, fear, illusions, the unhealthy fantasy. It wasn't entertainment. It led to all kinds of problems.
Right.
That's that Sixth Chakra. And learning how to direct that, how to aim that, how to be aware of that, how to be aware that so many of the fears that we go through, they're not even ours. They're just collective fears. When you get to the upper chakras, you're not dealing with your own personal stuff. You're dealing with collective levels of consciousness. Beyond crystalness, beyond Davidness, there's a humanness. There's a consciousness. And Carl Jung calls it the archetypal level, where there's these collective images that infiltrate everybody's dreams around the planet, all cultures, all times. Kind of archetypal images. And this is what we understand, is start working with that dimension of our own. But we have to know how to go through some of the fears and lower level crap. You can't just push it away. You have to almost go through it like going through, like Bad Place in the Lake or something. You start off in the shore, it's kind of mucky. Well, it's not my muck. You don't look at it and wonder, why is my beach mucky?
Right,
the whole lake is on the shore. So then you swim out and you go out to the center. The clear water. But you have to kind of go through some of that muck sometimes.
Absolutely.
Right?
You do. And I think visualization is, it's very powerful. I love that you talk about it, because for me, visualizing the chakras, when I'm meditating and watching them spin and all that kind of fun stuff is kind of how it's how I work with them, but and I write. So when I have a very hard time writing if I can't see the scene, at least when I'm starting. And then, like you say, a lot of times, it's that moment that every writer chases where you're just vomiting out the words and they're just, wrote a sentence. Now I've got 3 pages, and that's great. But on the flip side of that, that fear that you're talking about, well, we'll visualize that too. And I think everyone has experienced that, where you've got that thought in your head, and now all of a sudden you're kind of expending all this energy and you're just letting it grow. And you've took it to every imaginable place you could take that what if. Every worst case scenario, you've just, you've made a whole movie out of it.
And Hollywood would be proud, but your psyche is shuddering in fear.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But to recognize that, and how to, I have a practice, I call it, with working with some of these collective levels. I call it feel it, bless it, release it.
I'm glad you said that.
Feel it, bless it, release it. There's specifically no analyze it. You've already tried, like you say, you've analyzed this with every script scenario, you've done every what if imaginable, and you're still in this funky place.
Absolutely.
It might not be you. It might be the lake. I call it feel it, bless it, release it. You feel it. You can't stop feeling some of these outer, when we get up to a higher spiritual level, vibes. You can't stop feeling vibes, and you awaken, but then it makes you more sensitive. But then if you recognize that it's not our own individual stuff, this practice of feel it, I pull it into my lower chakras and just feel whatever it is. Is it suffering? Is it sorrow? Is it sadness? What is it? Bless it. I picture my own work of pulling it up my chakras and then release it, letting it go. Put it on the lap of God or say it with a prayer or release it. But feel it, bless it, release it. If a person's going through some of that imagined fear and they try that in earnest for a couple of minutes, more often than not, they're going to rise up out of it and realize that wasn't me at all.
I like that. I like that a lot. I think for me, I have a hard time with releasing things. It's almost like, sometimes I feel like I don't know how. You take in stuff and then it's like, well, now I've got it. Well, what do I do with it? Do I just, do I walk around in the grass for a little while and push it out of my feet? Do I, how, can you briefly talk about just how do you release things, David? What works for you?
For what? Now for meditating or for what?
Just,
what do you mean?
for when you're taking in those collective emotions. Okay, so now I've taken it in, I've brought it down, I felt it, I'm bringing it back up. So now how do I get rid of it so I'm not carrying around everybody else's stuff?
Right, that's a little exercise. Feel it, bless it, that release it's an important part of it. And specifically not analyze it. Get out of the mind, it's untrue, whatever it comes up with. Just feel it. And I picture like pulling that energy in to my, say, my second chakra, and then pulling it up my spine, going through the fire in my heart and purifying, and ultimately releasing. For me, releasing has become kind of automatic, but people could lay we have feeling of suffering for the refugees in the world, but we can't change it overnight. But we can feel it, we can bless it, and then we can lay it on the lap of God or higher forces if a person has a spiritual nature, a religious nature, or they can release it with their own prayer, so to speak, of the intention of, may all beings be blessed. May we learn how to live without creating such suffering on our planet. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. David, I am so excited about your book coming out. I will be one of the first people picking it up so I can read it and go back to more chakra work because I absolutely love working with the chakras. I think that it is so, so helpful. We're short on time here, so let's please tell everybody where they can find you. If they want to talk to you. I know you also do astrology that we briefly talked about earlier, and we could do. We'll do a whole separate show on astrology. Yeah, that's great.
Use them together, but David at davidpond.com is my email. My website is davidpond.com, just my name.com.
It's perfect.
And that'll direct you to how to get in touch with me or what services I offer.
And your book is...
my books I've written and whatnot.
Yes. And your book, Chakras Beyond Beginners, Awakening to the Power Within, will be out in October, right? So we can, however we want to go buy a book, we can go get it, right?
That's right. It's being published by Llewellyn, and they have a good distribution, so it'll be available most everywhere. Us people friendly to the WooWoo.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. And if you're not, we're going to suck you in. We're going to suck you into the WooWoo. That's helpfully. Maybe. We'll see. All right. You have been listening to that WooWoo Hour with Crystal and David. Thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope that you have listened to this and are able to take something away from it. I hope that you will absolutely, if you are so motivated to do so, if you resonated with this conversation, that you'll go and you'll pick up David's book that is available right now, Chakras for Beginners. And then if you like that, go and get his other book, Chakras Beyond Beginners, out in October. David has also written a couple of other things. He's written The Pursuit of Happiness. He's written a book called Astrology and Relationships. And he is also an astrologer, which I think astrology is an amazing tool for kind of just getting the weather and kind of, helping you figure out what's going on in your life. I think it's great. David, we'll have to have you back and do a show just on astrology and how, it's actually a useful thing to have, and we'll talk about that too.
Excellent. And I so enjoyed our interaction, and thank you for our time today.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, we
Thanks
are
for having me.
Signing off.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the WooWoo Hour podcast. This podcast airs monthly over on the website inthemindofcrystalstorm.com. You can support this work and other creative content by visiting our Patreon page, patreon.com/mind of a creator. We'll talk to you next month.